Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by and welcome to the fourth quarter and full year of 2020 Tarena International Incorporation earnings conference call. At this time, all participants in listen-only mode. After speaker's presentation, there will be a question and answer session. To ask questions during the session, you will need to press star 1 on your telephone. I must advise you that this conference is being recorded today, March the 19th, 2021. I would now like to hand the conference over to first speaker today, Ms. Amanda Wong, the Investor Relations Director. Thank you. Please go ahead now.
Thank you, operator. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Terena's earnings conference call for the fourth quarter and the full year of 2020. The company's earnings results were released earlier today and are available on our website, ir.tedu.cn, as well as on newswire services. Today, you will hear from Mr. Yongji Sun, our CEO, Ms. Nancy Sun, our Senior VP, and Mr. Kevin Lo, our CFO, who will take you through the company's operational and financial results for the fourth quarter and the full year of 2020, and give revenue guidance for the first quarter of 2021. After their prepared remarks, Mr. Sun, Nancy, and Kevin will be available to answer your questions. Before we continue, please note that the discussion today will contain certain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provisions of U.S. Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. These forward-looking statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that may cause actual results to differ materially from our current expectations. Terena does not assume any obligations to update any forward-looking statements, except as required under applicable law. Also, please note that some of the information to be discussed includes non-GAAP financial measures as defined in Regulation G. The U.S. GAAP financial measures and the information reconciling these non-GAAP financial measures to Terena's financial results prepared in accordance with U.S. GAAP are included in Terena's earnings release, which has been posted on the company's website. Finally, as a reminder, this conference call is being recorded. In addition, a webcast of this conference call is available on Terena's website. I will now turn the call over to Mr. Kevin Lo, CFO of Terena.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin. First of all, I got to apologize first. Our CEO, Mr. Sun, is out for a meeting and he's on the way back to the office now. So I will present Mr. Sun's script on his behalf. Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are delighted to announce our result for the fourth quarter and full year of 2020. Our net revenue in the fourth quarter of 2020 was RMB 650.3 million, which was higher than the guidance range of RMB 540 million to RMB 570 million we gave. Compared to the net revenue of RMB 509.6 million in the fourth quarter of 2019, the net revenues in the fourth quarter of 2020 increased by RMB 140.7 million or 27.6%. The net revenue for the year end December 31st, 2020 was RMB 1,897.9 million, decreased by RMB 153.5 million or 7.5% as compared to the net revenue of RMB 2,051.4 million for the year ended December 31st, 2019. Net revenue from K-12 education business increased by 64.7% from RMB 180.9 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 297.9 million in the same period of 2020. The number of student enrollments for K-12 education increased by 47% from 87,300 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 128,300 in the same period of 2020. The number of new students equipped for K-12 education increased by 6.7% from 19,400 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 20,700 in the same period of 2020. Net revenue from adult professional education business increased by 7.2% from RMB 328.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 352.4 million in the same period of 2020. Despite the number of student enrollments for adult professional education business decreased by 21.3% from 44,600 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 35,100 in the same period of 2020. And the number of new students equipped for adult professional education business decreased by 20.1% from 20,900 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 16,700 in the same period of 2020. In 2020, we have adopted a series of policies and actions to minimize the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on our businesses. We have achieved remarkable results on the optimization of organizational structure, improvement of operational efficiency, and effective controls on costs and expenses. The total cost of revenues and operating expenses decreased by 12.6% from RMB 841.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 735.4 million in the same period of 2020. The net loss decreased by 68.8% from RMB 303.8 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 94.7 million in the same quarter of 2020. The net loss decreased by 25.8% from RMB 1,038.9 million for the full year of 2019 to RMB 771.2 million for the full year of 2020. Our total headcounts decreased by 14.3% from an average of 11,713 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 10,043 in the same period of 2020. Productivity per capita increased by about 49% from RMB 43,500 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 64,800 in the same period of 2020. Improving the operational efficiency of our adult learning centers is one of our key strategies in 2020. We have taken active steps to close or merge those underperformed learning centers. The number of adult learning centers decreased from 130 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 104 in the same period of 2020. The net revenue per adult learning center increased by about 34% from RMB 2.53 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 3.39 million in the fourth quarter of 2020. The net revenue per student enrollment increased by about 35.1% from RMB 7,400 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 10,000 in the same period of 2020. The number of K-12 education learning centers increased from 217 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 236 in the same period of 2020. The net revenue per K-12 learning center increased by about 51.4% from RMB 0.83 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 1.26 million in the fourth quarter of this year. We are pleased with the progress and results of our K-12 business development we have achieved. In 2020, the company has devoted more resources to our K-12 education online courses and encouraged a more strategic migration to the online operation and business. The net revenue contributed by our K-12 online education business increased by 215.8% from RMB 34.2 million in 2019 to RMB 108 million in 2020. K-12 online education business contributed 14.2% and 6.5% of the K-12 education net revenue for the fiscal year of 2020 and 2019 respectively. Going into 2021, we will continuously stick to and implement our strategies we adopted in 2020, which are streamlining our products and services, and uplifting the operational and organizational structure efficiency. For adult education business, we will further explore deeper and more value-added cooperation with educational institutions to strengthen our existing leading positions in the market. For K-12 education business, we will further devote more resources to product research and development and enlarge our K-12 services capacity. On top of the K-12 programming and robotic training programs, we will organize and launch more IT-related competition and relevant training campaigns. We will continuously build and strengthen our national brand, both for the adult professional training and K-12 IT education. With that, I will turn the call to our Operation SVP, Nancy Sun, who will present to you some detail of our operation performance in the fourth quarter and full year of 2020.
好，谢谢 Kevin。好，各位投资界的朋友们，大家好啊，我们又见面了。接下来呢，我很开心的和大家汇报分享一下我们2020年第4季度，还有我们过去这一年全年的运营情况。
Thank you, Kelvin, and hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to present to you with information regarding our operation performance in the fourth quarter and the full year of 2020.
疫情在第4季度的局部区域有着短期的影响，主要表现在北京、沈阳、大连、哈尔滨以及河北的部分城市。但是呢，我们的整个团队面对疫情的影响，在产品的交付和营销、运营管理当中已经积累了非常丰富的经验，所以对我们的实际经营并没有产生大的影响。
In the fourth quarter, some local areas were affected for a short term by the COVID-19, including Beijing, Shenyang, Dalian, Harbin, and some cities of Hebei provinces. Our team, however, has gathered a wealth of experiences in the delivery and the marketing of products and the operations management, allowing us to get through this wave without causing serious impact on our actual operations.
下面呢，我先介绍一下我们成人 IT 职业教育业务的情况。
I'll start with the adult education business.
纵观2020年的全年，我们的成人业务持续坚持优化成本、提高产能、健康经营、稳健发展的经营策略。受疫情影响，我们全年的收入11.36亿，同比2019年的15.27亿下降了25.6%。同时，运营成本4.2亿，同比2019年的6.3亿下降了33.1%，毛利为7.15亿，同比2019年的9亿下降20.4%。
In 2020, we have been adhering to the business strategy of cost-efficient and productivity improvement to achieve healthy operation and steady development in the adult education business. Affected by the pandemic, our revenue in 2020 was RMB 1,136.1 million, a decline of 25.6% compared with RMB 1,527.2 million in 2019, and the cost of revenues also dropped by 33.1% from RMB 627.8 million in 2019 to RMB 420.3 million in 2020. The gross profit decreased by 20.4% from RMB 899.4 million in 2019 to RMB 715.8 million in 2020.
但是非常值得欣喜的是，第4季度我们的成本以及运营的费用继续降低，而收入同时增长，能效提高幅度很大。在 Q3 运营盈利的基础之上，我们实现了 Q4 的持续盈利。
But the good news is that our cost of revenues and operating expenses in the fourth quarter had decreased, allowing us to have huge regain and efficiency. We thus retained our operating profitability in the fourth quarter, continuing the operating profitability in the third quarter.
Q4 虽然成人业务的中心数量相对于2019年12月末净减少了26个，场地面积12.92万，同比减少了32%。但是我们的收入3.52亿， 同比2019年的 Q4 的3.29亿却提高了 7.2%。教学成本 1.19亿，同比2019年 Q4 的 1.53亿下降 22.3%。毛利为 2.33亿，同比2019年的 1.75亿提高了 33.1%。
In the fourth quarter of 2020, despite the number of learning centers for adult education had a net decrease of 26, and the site areas, which is 129.2 thousand square meters, were reduced by 32% as compared to the same period of 2019. Our revenue reached up to RMB 352.4 million, with an increase of 7.2% compared with RMB 328.7 million achieved in the fourth quarter of 2019. The cost of revenues was RMB 119.2 million, marking a drop of 22.3% compared with the cost of RMB 153.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. The gross profit increased by 33.1% from RMB 175.2 million in the fourth quarter of 2019 to RMB 233.2 million in the same period of 2020.
那么在提高收入的方面，我们持续优化产品线，提高一线人员销售和服务的专业能力，减少了价格优惠和低价模块课程销售。通过这些有效的运营管理手段，我们使得生均的学费有所提高，从而使得收入同比实现增长。
In respect of revenue growth, we lifted the sales and service abilities of the frontline employees, continuously optimized our product lines, raised the average tuition fees per student by using effective operational means such as reducing the price discount and the sales of low-price module courses. We thus realized the year-over-year growth of revenues.
在运营费用结构的优化方面，我们也有了很好的进展。我们前端通过提高口碑招生的占比，使得销售的费用大幅降低。
Meanwhile, we made good progress in terms of the optimization of operating expense structure. The increased proportion of student enrollment by word-of-mouth promotion at the front end enabled great reduction in the marketing expenses.
基于雄厚的教学实力和就业服务体系，我们毕业6个月学员的就业率依旧保持在90%以上。良好的就业保障是我们业务持续发展的基础。
By virtue of our strong strength in teaching and employment service, the 6-month post-course job placement rate remained above 90%. Good job placement rates serve the foundation for our sustainable business development.
展望2021，我们持续坚持健康运营、稳健发展的经营策略，并且将持续发展我们的组织，提高效能，探索新的产品交付的模式。
Looking forward to 2021, we will continuously follow the strategies of maintaining healthy operation and steady development, optimizing organizational structures, enhancing efficiency, and exploring new models of product delivery.
那么接下来我再和大家介绍一下我们的 K12 业务的情况。
Now I'd like to give you some colors of our K12 education business operation.
正如大家所了解的，在 K12 教育中，我们定位于面向3到18岁的中国孩子提供专业的编程教育。基于我们沉淀的编程教育的专业实力，我们长期致力于成为每个孩子可以信赖的编程教育专家和每个家庭可以信赖的科技素质教育伙伴。
As it is known for K12 education business, our goal and position are to provide professional programming education to Chinese students aged 3 to 18. Based on our strong accumulated experience and knowledge on professional programming education, we have long been committed to becoming a programming education expert that every child can trust, and a science and technology education partner that every family can rely on.
2020年的第4季度，我们的少儿业务在产品和服务、运营和获客等各个层面都持续提高。通过卓有成效的管理，总体上，我们在成本和运营费用整体下降的情况下， 实现了收入的大幅增长，运营效率得到了更大程度的提高。
In the fourth quarter of 2020, we witnessed a continuous improvement in products and services, operation and student recruitment in the K-12 education business sector. Relying on our efficient management, we realized an overall substantial increase in revenues and operational efficiency, with reduction of total cost of revenues and operating expenses.
2020年第四季度，少儿在营的中心是236家。较19年的第四季度增加了19家，少儿业务的收入为2.98亿，同比增长了64.7%，成本同比增长9.9%，毛利同比增长419.7%，毛利率达到了42.2%。2020年全年收入7.62个亿，同比增长45.3%。成本增长18.4%，毛利增长达到了626.7%。在2020年，注册学员141600人，同比增长42.7%。
In the fourth quarter of 2020, there were 236 learning centers in K-12 education, with a net increase of 19 centers compared with the number in the fourth quarter of 2019. The revenues contributed by the K-12 education business reached RMB 297.9 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, increasing by 64.7% on a year-to-year basis. Besides, in the fourth quarter of 2020, the cost of revenues increased by 9.9%. The gross profit grew by 419.7% year over year. The gross margin reached up to 42.2%. The net revenue in 2020 was RMB 761.8 million, a year-over-year growth of 45.3%. The cost of revenues increased by 18.4%, and the gross profit increased by 626.7%. In 2020, the total student enrollment was 141,600, indicating a year-over-year growth of 42.7%.
在收入增长方面，第四季度我们新缴费的学员，包括新注册和续费的学员，总人数是35000人，同比去年增长了22.4%。2020全年新缴费的学员，包括新注册和续费学员的总人数是103300人，同比去年增长了11.3%。由于持续的优化产品、提高服务、提高学员满意度是我们的运营重点，所以在第四季度，我们在新缴费学员中，口碑和续费学员的占比持续提高，达到了56.1%。2020全年这个比例为49.8%。优秀的学员满意率使得我们的报读超过1年的学员的续费比率达到了86%。
In the aspects of revenue growth, the number of new contracted students, including newly registered students and renewal students, reached up to 35,000 in the fourth quarter of 2020, increasing by 22.4% compared with the same period of 2019. For the whole year of 2020, there were a total of 103,300 new contracted students, including newly registered students and renewal students, representing a year-over-year increase of 11.3%. The renewal and word-of-mouth recruited students accounted for 56.1% and 49.8% of new contracted students in the fourth quarter of 2020 and the full year of 2020, respectively, which was attributed to our business focus on optimizing product lines, improving services, and student satisfaction. About 86% of those students who have been studying our K-12 education programs for more than 1 year have completed the renewal in the fourth quarter of 2020.
第四季度，我们在营销和获客的管理上有非常亮丽的表现，这使得我们在招生增长的情况下，销售费用大幅下降。我们的生均销售费用，在这里是不包括人员相关的工资福利费用的。生均销售费用同比下降达到了46%，在2020年的全年，生均销售费用同比下降达到21%。
We also achieved excellent results on optimizing the sales and marketing expenses and student acquisition cost in the fourth quarter of 2020. While our student enrollment increased, specifically the marketing expenses per student enrollment, which is excluding wages and the welfare expenses of related personnel, dropped by 46% year-over-year. For the whole year of 2020, the marketing expenses per student enrollment decreased by 21%.
我们的在线业务也呈现了持续的增长。2020年全年收入 1.08 亿，同比增长了 215.8%， 在我们少儿总收入当中占比 14.2%。
In 2020, we achieved a revenue of RMB 108 million in the K-12 education online business, making a year-over-year growth of 215.8%, which accounted for 14.2% of total revenue in K-12 education business.
接下来的2021年，我们的经营管理围绕着这样几个关键词来进行：首先是健康增长，然后是口碑服务，接下来是产品创新，最后是组织发展。通过持续的优化成本结构，提高产品和服务，提高效能，我们来实现收入的健康增长。
In 2021, we will carry out the operating management focusing on healthy growth, word-of-mouth recognized service, product innovation, and lastly, organizational development. We will provide better products and services and boost the efficiency through the continuous optimization of cost structure, thus achieving the sound growth of revenues.
面向未来，在少儿编程教育的赛道上，我们的线下用户管理和获客渠道，以及线上直播教育将持续成为我们发展的两个重要基点。我们将坚持教育的初心，提供好的教育产品，并坚持持续探索健康的商业模型，实现业务的盈利。
Looking into the future, offline customer relationship management, exploitation of student recruitment channels, as well as online live broadcasting education will continue to be our key pillars on the track of K-12 education. We will keep the original faith to provide good educational products and keep on exploring healthy business models for profitable operations.
借此机会，再次感谢大家一直以来对我们的关注和支持。下面有请我们的 CFO Kevin 为大家分享一下2020年第4季度以及全年财务数据的情况。
Thanks again for your constant support. I'd like to turn the call to Kelvin, our CFO, who will share with you the fourth quarter and the full year of 2020 financial highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Now I would like to take you through the fourth quarter and full year of 2020 financial highlights. First of all, I will go through the fourth quarter financial highlights. Total revenue increased by 27.6% to RMB 650.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 509.6 million in the same period of 2019. Net revenue from adult education business increased by 7.2% to RMB 352.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 328.7 million in the same period of 2019. The increase was primarily due to that less price discounts were offered to students as a result of the implementation of the standardized pricing and discount policies in the fourth quarter of 2020. Net revenues from K-12 education business increased by 64.7% to RMB 297.9 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 180.9 million in the same period of 2019. The increase was primarily due to the increase in student enrollments of K-12 education by 47%, from 87,300 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 128,300 in the same period of 2020, as well as higher class consumption rates resulting from the increase in numbers of students attending organized competition and sitting for certificate examinations. Cost of revenue decreased by 6% to RMB 291.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 310.1 million in the same period of 2019. The decrease was primarily due to the decrease in number of adult education learning centers, which resulted in a reduction of both personnel-related costs and rental expenses, partially offset by the increase in costs arising from the addition of K-12 education new learning centers. Gross profit increased by 79.9% to RMB 358.8 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 199.4 million in the same period of 2019. Gross margin, which is equal to gross profit divided by net revenues, was 55.2% in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to 39.1% in the same period of 2019. The increase in gross margin was primarily due to a significant increase in net revenue plus the effective control on costs. Total operating expenses decreased by 16.4% to RMB 443.9 million in the fourth quarter of 2019, from RMB 531.3 million in the same period of 2019. Total non-GAAP operating expenses, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, decreased by 16.3% to RMB 436.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 521.4 million in the same period of 2019. Total share-based compensation expenses allocated to the related operating expenses decreased by 23.7% to RMB 7.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 9.9 million in the same period of 2019. Selling and marketing expenses decreased by 26.8% to RMB 223.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 305.1 million in the same period of 2019. The decline was mainly due to decrease in marketing activities and promotional spendings, and decrease in personnel-related expenses resulting from lower headcounts in the fourth quarter of 2020. General and administrative expenses decreased by 1.4% to RMB 195.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 198.1 million in the same period of 2019. The decline was primarily due to decrease in personnel-related expenses resulting from lower headcounts in the fourth quarter of 2020, and there were one-time investigation-related professional expenses incurred in the fourth quarter of 2019. Research and development expenses decreased by 10.1% to RMB 25.2 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, from RMB 28.1 million in the same period of 2019. The decline was mainly due to a decrease in personnel-related expenses resulting from lower headcounts. Operating loss was RMB 85.1 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to operating loss of RMB 331.9 million in the same period of 2019. Non-GAAP operating loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 77.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to non-GAAP operating loss of RMB 321.7 million in the same period of 2019. The company recorded an income tax expenses of RMB 7 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to income tax benefit of RMB 28.7 million in the same period of 2019. As a result of the foregoing, net loss was RMB 94.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to net loss of RMB 303.8 million in the same period of 2019. Non-GAAP net loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 87.1 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to non-GAAP net loss of RMB 293.6 million in the same period of 2019. Loss per ADS was RMB 1.72 in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to loss per ADS of RMB 5.64 in the fourth quarter of 2019. Non-GAAP loss per ADS, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 1.58 in the fourth quarter of 2020, compared to non-GAAP loss per ADS of RMB 5.45 in the fourth quarter of 2019. Net cash inflow from operating activities in the fourth quarter of 2020 was RMB 86.5 million. Capital expenditures in the fourth quarter of 2020 were RMB 14.6 million. Now I'm going to take you through the full year of 2020 financial highlights. Net revenues decreased by 7.5% to RMB 1,897.9 million in 2020 from RMB 2,051.4 million in 2019. The decrease was primarily due to the reduction of class consumption rates for both adult and K-12 education businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic in the fiscal year of 2020. Cost of revenue decreased by 9.1% to RMB 1,066.8 million in 2020 from RMB 1,173.8 million in 2019. The decrease was mainly due to the reduction of cooperation with tutoring service providers as most students were transferred to online studying during the COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the utility and office fees declined as our employees worked from home, and the social security fees were exempted due to the preferential policies enacted by the government. The decrease was also partially attributable to the decrease in numbers of adult education learning centers, which resulted in decrease in personnel-related costs and rental expenses. Gross profit decreased by 5.3% to RMB 831 million in 2020 from RMB 877.5 million in 2019. Gross margin, which is equal to gross profit divided by net revenues, was 43.8% in 2020, compared with 42.8% in 2019. The increase in gross margin was mainly attributable to our efficient cost controls implemented in 2020. Total operating expenses decreased by 17.1% to RMB 1,637.4 million in 2020 from RMB 1,975.7 million in 2019. Total non-GAAP operating expenses, which exclude the share-based compensation expenses, decreased by 16.5% to RMB 1,601.6 million in 2020 from RMB 1,917.5 million in 2019. Total share-based compensation expenses allocated to the related operating expenses decreased by 38.4% to RMB 35.8 million in 2020 from RMB 58.2 million in 2019. Selling and marketing expenses decreased by 19.1% to RMB 906.3 million in 2020 from RMB 1,119.7 million in 2019. The decline was mainly due to decrease in marketing activities and promotional spendings in fiscal year of 2020. In addition, personnel-related expenses decreased as a result of lower headcounts, and social security fees were exempted due to the preferential policies and added by the government during COVID-19 pandemic in the fiscal year of 2020. General and administrative expenses decreased by 12.8% to RMB 630.6 million in 2020 from RMB 723.3 million in 2019. The decline was mainly due to decrease in personnel-related expenses resulting from lower headcounts, and social security fees were exempted according to preferential policies enacted by the government during COVID-19 pandemic in the fiscal year of 2020. Furthermore, there were one-time investigation-related professional expenses incurred in the fiscal year of 2019. Research and development expenses decreased by 24.3% to RMB 100.5 million in 2020 from RMB 132.7 million in 2019. The decline was mainly due to decrease in personnel-related expenses resulting from lower headcounts. Operating loss was RMB 806.4 million in 2020, compared to the operating loss of RMB 1,098.2 million in 2019. Non-GAAP operating loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 770.1 million in 2020, compared to non-GAAP operating loss of RMB 1,039 million in 2019. The company recorded an income tax benefit of RMB 35 million in 2020, compared to income tax benefit of RMB 41.6 million in 2019. As a result of the foregoing, net loss was RMB 771.2 million in 2020, compared to net loss of RMB 1,038.9 million in 2019. Non-GAAP net loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 734.9 million in 2020, compared to non-GAAP net loss of RMB 979.7 million in 2019. Loss per ADS was RMB 14.11 in 2020, compared to loss per ADS of RMB 19.41 in 2019. Non-GAAP loss per ADS, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 13.44 in 2020, compared to non-GAAP loss per ADS of RMB 18.3 in 2019. Cash and cash equivalents and time deposits, including current and non-current and restricted cash, decreased by 41.3% from RMB 621.2 million as of December 31st, 2019, to RMB 364.8 million as of December 31st, 2020. The decrease was mainly due to net cash used in operating activities, which was mainly composed of net loss of RMB 771.2 million incurred in the year of 2020, partially offset by the increase in total deferred revenue of RMB 412.2 million and depreciation and amortization charges of RMB 177.5 million, and net cash used in financing activities, which were mainly composed of the repayment of RMB 78.5 million bank borrowings in 2020. Capital expenditure in 2020 were RMB 71.5 million. In terms of financial guidance, based on our current operations, total revenues for the first quarter of 2021 are expected to be between RMB 470 million and RMB 500 million. After taking into consideration the seasonal fluctuation factors and likely continuous impact of COVID-19. This guidance is based on the current market condition and reflects the company's current and preliminary estimate of market and operating conditions, which are subject to change, particularly as to the potential impact of COVID-19 on the economy in China and elsewhere in the world. This concludes my financial highlights section. Operator, we are ready for questions.
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. If you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to cancel your request, please press pound or hash key. It's star followed by 1 to ask a question. Thank you. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. Thank you. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. Thank you.
Hey, operator, our CEO, Mr. Sun, is already back to the office. He wants to speak a little bit, okay?
OK， 大家好，我是
So please go ahead. We have no questions at this point of time. Please go ahead.
OK， 大家好，我是孙永基，公司 CEO。刚才不好意思啊，在这个路上，今天北京非常堵车。我相信可能刚才大家听了这个我们这个 SVP Nancy 和这个 CFO 的这个给大家的报告，应该是说对于公司我们在2020 Q4 以及2020这个全年的一季呢，都是应该是还是比较感到令人振奋的啊。所以呢，我们下面呢看看还有一些时间，今天时间不多啊，还是希望自己利用这个机会和大家做一些交流。大家有什么一些问题呢，可以随时这个提出来。
So hello everyone, my name is Sun Yongji. I'm the CEO of Terena International Incorporation. So sorry, first of all I want to say sorry because I was caught in a traffic jam, so I was late for our conference call. But I believe that you guys are very excited after hearing our SVP Nancy and Calvin, our CFO's words. So we do have a very promising Q4 in 2020, and we do have very promising figures in the 2024 year. So the time is quite precious here. If you guys have any questions, you are welcome to ask your question, and we will answer your question.
We are ready.
We have a question. Yeah, we have a question on the line. So the first question comes from the line of Zhang Jian from Ma and Wong Asset Management. Please go ahead. Excuse me, Zhang, your line is open. You can ask your question now. Please go ahead.
可以问问题了。
喂，
江总，
喂，听得到吗？
听到。
喂，你好。
你好。
哎，你好，哎，首先恭喜啊，公司 Q4 取得了比较好的业绩啊。我这里想请教一下，还是想问一下公司私有化的问题啊，就是因为之前不是已经公告了嘛，那想问一下目前的一个进展。先问这个问题吧。
江总啊，我先用中文来回答，因为这个根据相关的规定的话，还有公司的 policy 这个政策的话，我们是不能评论这个私有化的问题的，因为我们已经成立了这个特别委员会，就是他们来主导的。所以如果有什么重要的进展的话，我们会适当的做这个公告。所以在这个会上面，我们不方便去评论说一些私有化的事情。So we are not in a proper position to comment, I think, the progress or the expectation of the privatization process. So whenever there's any progress or any development in terms of the related to the privatization project, we will make the announcement, I think, publicly, so to inform everybody. So not proper for us to talk about the privatization in this conference call. Yeah.
OK， 好，谢。好，谢谢。另外想再问一下，就是公司 Q4 的业绩看起来不错，但是总体上还是亏损的吧？想问一下，就是能不能再详细分拆一下，就是拆到各个月，就是是不是已经达成了，就是我们管理层之前希望的，就是至少有一个月嘛，就是已经能够实现这个单月的这个就是报表这个目标是不是已经达成了？
嗨，你好，张总，我是 Nancy。事实上就是在第4季度的时候呢，我们的这个成人业务确实是实现了经营的这个盈利，少儿业务呢，实际上我们还是在市场比较好的情况下看了整个收入的这个增长， 如果我们采用一种比较保守的经营策略呢，我是有可能在某些月份去实现这个盈利的。但是呢，就是在这样一个整个赛道增长都越来越快的阶段，我们不想错失我们的市场份额。其实大家能够看到的是，在第4季度，我们成人是这个实现了盈利的，在 Q3 基础之上，业务是盈利的。那我们的这个少儿呢，其实收入的增长是非常非常可喜的。如果看今年排除上半年疫情的影响，就7到12月份的话，那我们的这个其实少儿的收入已经接近96%的增长，同比去年的这个下半年这是我们业务的这个数据。所以其实希望大家能够理解，当我们2个业务不同的阶段或不一样的机会，希望错失这个机会。但是呢，从我们这个经营现金上面看的话，我们的少儿是实现了业务的这个现金的这个正向的这个流入就是我们是可以实现业务自己的这个现金盈利的。那财务的盈利呢，我们还是以像我刚才说的，我还是希望能够增加收入，持续保持新招拉新大致是这样的一个情况，张健。
Okay, so previously, the question was about the Q4 financials and the total financials. It seems that Terena scored a very positive Q4 numbers. However, overall speaking, Terena is still in a loss position. So I was just wondering whether we can achieve the earnings or monthly profitability, like our management have said before. And our SVP, Ms. Nancy, have answered the question that we do have a very positive earnings for our adult business in Q4, and our revenues for K-12 business is very exciting. And we will continue our rather conservative strategies going forward because the market is developing very fast. We don't want to lose our market shares. Based on the Q3 numbers, we can see that our adult business figures and our revenues for K-12 business in the Q4 of 2020 is quite promising. And excluding the factors such as COVID-19, from July to December in 2020, we do see a 96% of revenue growth for our K-12 business compared with the second half of 2019. So that is a huge opportunity for us. We don't want to miss the opportunity, and we do have a very positive cash revenue. So in the future, we will continue to focus on cash revenue increase and our decrease of cost per acquisition.
OK， 好，感谢Nelson。我这里还有最后一个问题想请教一下，就是我们少儿的这个业务这一块，就是我们今年的一个策略，就是是不是要开始重拾扩张，就是包括是不是要再扩一些网点或者怎么样，这有没有一些具体的一些计划？然后呢，因为我们扩张的话，可能也就涉及到一个资金方面的问题嘛，那就资金这一块的问题怎么解决？就大概这个问题，谢谢。
我先翻译一下您的这个问题。So previously, so this is the last question for our conference call, and it's a question about K-12 business or children education business. So just asking, what is the strategy for K-12 this year? Do we want to expand our learning centers? And if we want to expand our sites, that means we need more money. How to solve that issue?
OK， 张总您好，我是 Nancy， 我是关于您的这个问题，我想从2个层面去回答。第一个就是2021我们经营策略是什么那么呢，其实第2个层面就是是否我们扩张我想经过2015年我们导入到市场，然后2017年到2018、2019、3年的这个快速的成长，2020年我们这个经历了疫情，虽然我们在持续增长的过程当中，但是2021年我们还是坚持在健康的基础之上的这种增长。那所谓健康的这个基础呢，就是我们的业务结构这个业务模型会跑得更扎实，然后呢，我们的这个组织 织力，伴随着业务的成长，我们的组织力也需要这几年进行比较好的这样的一个调整，希望是在一个健康的基础之上增长。那其实对我们来说，我所理解的就是做强是优先于做大的这是第一个我们的这个经营理念。那么在2021年，我们会看回我们的服务和口碑，持续保持服务和口碑的这种增长，会探索一些运营的创新，然后保持我们的组织结构的这个升级就在这些层面。那么您也非常了解我们，正如很多投资人都了解我们一样，所以在 Q1 我们是没有开设新中心的计划的。
Okay, so to answer your first question, we were in this market since 2015, and over the past 3 years, from 2017, 2018, and 2019, we've witnessed a very fast development for Terena International. And although there was a COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we do have a positive financials in 2020. And in 2021, we want to continue our fast development based on a very sound structure, meaning that we will continue to rely on our very stable operating structure. We will continue to enhance and adjust our organization power. We believe that we want to be a powerhouse rather than a big house. And in 2021, we will continue to strengthen our services, our word-of-mouth referrals, our innovative operating method, and our value-added structures. So we don't have any new plans to build new sites in Q1 of 2021.
OK， 好，谢谢 Nancy， 清楚了，非常清楚。我这里没有问题了，谢谢。
No question.
Thank you. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. Thank you. As there are no further questions, I would like to hand the call back to our presenters for any closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, operator. If there's no further questions at present, we would like to conclude by thank you everyone for joining our conference call. We welcome you to reach out to us directly by email at ir@tedu.cn. Should you have any questions or requests for additional information, we encourage you to visit our website at ir.tedu.cn. Thank you.
Thank you.
谢谢大家。
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the conference for today. Thank you for participating. You may all disconnect now. Thank you.